do you think that somebody should be a business owner first before buying a business? Because if they never operated a business, it could be a chance that they might come in and potentially mess things up. So do you think that somebody who just quit their job, or is maybe still in their job, could, leave their job and go right into owning a business versus starting a business of their own?
So 2 ways I'm answering that. The first way, 100%, you can start from scratch, never had anything, know anything about it, and then you got into it. My neighbor and I talked about that recently because he bought his first funeral home when he was in college. He was like 18, 19, something like that. And he bought it and he's a Black man and bought it from a Jewish funeral home, but he was able to take it over and change the community. And that's not easy to do. I digress. Anyway, but that's the first way that, yes, you could jump in any way, whether you want to get into it. If you started your business from scratch, you still might fail. So it's not a different, you know what I'm saying? If you're getting into business, you might fail. It happens, but you get a head start if you acquire a business.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Melanin Money Show. And actually, our guest today I was actually supposed to be a guest on his episode before he was a guest on ours, but the stars just aligned this way, and we're here and we're gonna get the party started. I got a chance to connect with this gentleman not too long ago, man, but we started talking. There was a ton of synergy there. Love what he's building. And I just knew that we had to have him on the Melanin Money Show, right? Because we're trying to give y'all all the exposure to all the game on how to build wealth. And he's doing it in a way that I don't feel like a lot of people know about, right? And so we need to amplify this message as much as possible. So with no further ado, we got Beez, also known as Business Builder Beez, on the show. How you feeling, man?
Yo, I'm feeling great, man. Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here. We've had some great conversations already, bro, for real. That synergy is real because immediately we connected on certain things that I was doing. I think you said you were looking to acquire something just recently, and then all of a sudden that popped up. So,
yeah. Law of attraction is unbiased, right?
Yeah.
Carter, Jacqueline, how y'all feeling today?
Good. I'm super excited that we have Beez on today. I actually got to be present for your TED Talk in Philly. Remember that? That was the first time we met, and you blew it out of the water. So you guys should check that out after you listen to this episode. How you feeling, Carter?
I'm feeling great. Happy to be here, man. Just be around 3 amazing, smart individuals. I hope to learn something today because this is something that's been on my list to learn. And I heard you're the best person to learn it from, brother. So I am happy to be here.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. So Beez, man, this is not something that, especially in our community, in our ecosystem, right, that is widely talked about. So I would love if you could kind of give us just your backstory on how you got into this space, right? How do you wake up one day and say, yo, I'm buying that business? And most people wake up and say, I'm buying that shirt, I'm buying that business. Like, walk us through that journey, man. How'd you get into the world of M&A and just buying businesses and all that good stuff?
So it's funny because I was just reflecting on that literally an hour before coming on here. I was on my deal board and looking through the deals that my team has put together. And then I'm saying, I'm interested in this one. Let's move it through the process, contact the broker, etc. And, I started looking, I was like, damn, I can't believe I'm looking at this type of business, that type of business. It's like the weirdest things, like, oh, I never thought of that. But yes, it exists. And it's out there making money already, and you could just come and acquire it. But let me explain how it all started. I was in corporate America for like 15 years, and I worked at Accenture, I worked at Microsoft. I was an IT strategy management consultant. So I'd be sent into different Fortune 500 companies to help them to grow, to scale. Large multi-billion dollar companies to help them to grow further, to be more efficient. And part of the way from scaling, one of the most important ways of scaling, apart from process, systems, and people, another way is through acquisitions. So these, I would help to consult on which acquisition targets would be good for a large company and fit their industry, and then help to integrate. I worked a lot on the merger side too, integrating the teams together after the acquisition and things like that. So, I got the exposure there. That's why I always tell people that, I talk about being an entrepreneur and being an investor, but I started in my 9 to 5. And if you start in your 9 to 5, there's nothing wrong with that, but take things from there, learn from it, and then use it if you want to get into your entrepreneur life. And then I keep this next to me at all times. This book, Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun?
That's perfect for this show, right?
Listen, this book is required reading in my Business Builders Institute. This book changed my life. It's the story of this guy right here, Reginald Lewis. Anybody ever heard of him before?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Most people I mention and they're like, nah, I don't know. And I'm like, that's sad because this is the first Black billionaire of modern times, right, in the US. And he did it through leverage buyouts, buying businesses. And when you read this book, I mean, it's going to open your mind to a whole different world. So I was like, I need to know more about this. And I knew I was in the mergers and acquisition space in corporate America a little bit. This book came out probably like 2005 or something like that, or 6. And I was in the mergers and acquisition space a little bit, but I wasn't doing an LBO. I was like, what's this? And I'm talking about, here's another book. This is called Barbarians at the Gate. It's the story of the largest LBO in history, and that was with Nabisco, right? So this ain't something new, right? This is something that has been going on for generations, and this is something that we just, didn't think we could do too, right? And most people would say, oh, wow, Beez, that's amazing what you're doing. Teaching people this, that's above me though. And I'm like, no, it's not. I didn't make this up. I didn't create it myself. It exists and we can learn it, but we need to be executing on it to create true wealth.
I think that's one of the beautiful things that you said was that a lot of us don't know about this, right? A lot of us subscribe to the struggle story. Like we think that there is a prize for suffering. Like we think that we have to start everything from scratch and do it all on our own. And what I love about what you're teaching is that you can literally buy something that's already cash flowing, that's already making money. You don't have to start your business from scratch, right? And that's why I will forever sing your praises, because I'm like, more people need to know that you don't have to start from the bottom. We love that Drake song, started from the bottom, now we're here, but you don't really have to start from the bottom.
Yeah, that's a fact. Because the thing, like, if anybody knows my mantra, right? My whole MO is like, I help people become financially free 3 times faster than traditional financial advice, right? And one of the ways that you do that is you have to prioritize cash flow over accumulation, right? So even though I love investing in the stock market, right? It's more, if you're not trading, right? It's more of an accumulation model. Tuck $400 away for 40 years and voila, right? You'll have $1 million, you can live off $40,000. Great story, right? When you start to look at being able to invest and acquire businesses, right? You're like, oh man, like, okay, so I can buy this business and I can get like cash flow today. I can only withdraw 4% from my $1 million portfolio. That's 40 grand a year. Like I have $1 million locked up versus what could $1 million do if I was acquiring a business, not to mention if it doesn't even have to be my own $1 million. So like just starting to have those revelations, you start to realize that the traditional model of financial freedom is quite antiquated and quite dated. And you got to ask yourself who really stands to benefit from it, right? It's like if your money's locked up for this period of time, do you think it's really just sitting there? What are the institutions doing with it? And that's another conversation for another day. But it just really intrigued me, right, on how to have these other avenues to produce cash flow. So can you get into kind of some of the high level like intricacies of like what is the process from A to Z at a high level to buying your first business, right? Someone's like, man, this guy got me hooked off the rip. I got the books. I'm ready to go. Like, what's that step-by-step process at a high level if someone wants to get into this space and buy a business?
Definitely. So the first step is going to be, what do you want to buy, right? And that's the craziest part of it, because there's so many great businesses to buy that you could feel like a kid in a candy store. Oh, wow, I want that one. I want that one. I want that one. And it just keeps going. But you have to be disciplined and create a strategy for yourself. For example, if you're already an entrepreneur and you already have a business in trucking, maybe you want some sort of horizontal integration or vertical integration, related to that industry. You want the warehouses too. You want the dispatcher too, right? So that could be the path around there. Now, after you decide what you want to buy, the traditional way, y'all hear me talking about leverage buyouts, LBOs. That's one strategy. That's not the only way. right? And to be honest, if I talk to 20 people, 20 sellers, maybe I got 3 of them completely zero out of my pocket. Maybe another 5, I said, I'm still going to go for those 5. And maybe I had to come up with 10% or something, but the rest was zero out of my pocket, right? So I play the numbers too. So the first thing you got to do is, after you identify what you want to sell, you're going to start contacting brokers. You're going to go on some sites, like the online broker sites, like Biz Buy Sell.
Biz Buy Sell.
Exactly.
Yeah.
BizBuySell.com is just a good way to start. It's not the only one. I could show you 1,000 different methods.
Yes, he can. Yeah. Because we had a whole conversation. I was like, yo, my God, what is this? What's going on here? Wait a minute.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
But
Don't hold out on us.
we'll get there.
Sprinkle 2 more in there. Sprinkle 2 more in there.
Well, so here's a perfect example. You're more interested in a restaurant. Yeah, you could go to Biz Buy Sell. It's the largest online broker site for businesses, or you could go to restaurants-forsale.net, something like that, because they only focus on restaurants. You may find a better concentration in there. Or you go to flippa.com because you want to get e-commerce businesses, maybe buy an Amazon brand or something. Or you go to routesforsale.com or I think it's routesforsale.net. If you're into trucking, why buy just a trucking company? Buy one that has dedicated lanes. They got routes that's already part of the trucking company. So you come in day one, not having to hit on the load boards looking for work. You got dedicated lanes. That's the benefit of this, because more than 80% of businesses that start up are gone in 5 years. Right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
On top of that, less than 5% of businesses even make it to 7 figures in revenue. So if I'm gonna acquire a business, what you think I'm gonna do? I'm gonna look for one that's older than 5 years old, already got to 7 figures, right? There's this thing called a stock purchase versus an asset purchase. I got into this whole argument with somebody because it was like, you can't get I always say that you could get the business credit when you're buying a business too. So don't worry about how to build business credit. You could acquire business credit. And somebody,
now you're talking spicy.
Yeah. We go deep, but somebody said to me, no, you don't get the business credit with it because you're getting the assets. I was like, yeah, that's called an asset purchase. You can also do a stock purchase. Stock purchase, I'm gonna get the actual entity. So when I got people coming to me on a regular basis on social media talking about, hey, can you get me an Age Corp? I'm like, why get an Age Corp when you get a whole business? That's cash flowing. And if you do the stock purchase, you got their Age Corp that you could go and get funding in. Right. So, we have to stop running plays. We have to, I got some good friends who always talk about run the play and the play this and that, but plays get played out. Plays are more like get rich quick things, like, yo, I got this thing. If you do this real quick, you could get that. You know what I mean? We don't need that no more. We need these things, sustainable strategies that other communities, I won't name what they are, have been doing for generations.
Yeah. You can pass a business, right? You can't pass a play.
Exactly. So ultimately, I didn't finish let me go back to that high level real quick and just run through it. So you contact the broker after you're on Biz Buy Sell. They're going to say, okay, yeah, we can give you information. Here's an NDA you got to sign. You sign the NDA. They give you something called a CIM, C-I-M, Confidential Information Memorandum. Then you review it. It's going to have at least 3 years of P&Ls. You're going to probably want to ask for more because 2020 is in this 3 years and it's an outlier year, and 2021 kind of too. So I want to see at least 5 years of P&Ls and other data. Then you have your first meeting with them. You get some questions answered. It's all about building the rapport with the seller. It's not just about the numbers.
Okay, hold on 1 second before you get too far. So on that first step, when they reach out to the broker, right? Through, let's just say Biz Buy Sell, reach out to the broker. Hey, I want to get the confidential information, right? And they say, okay, that's cool. Show us proof of funds. What do you say to somebody who's new to this and is like, I don't have proof of funds. I got like $10,000 saved.
So we had a conversation about that in the community on our first call back last night. And I also mentioned how if you really want that business, there's ways that you could get proof of funds, because it's not just about bank account. They also look at other things, and then you could bring in another investor that's coming with you. It's just like if you were applying for a car and you wanted a co-signer or something, right? Mm-hmm. However, let me explain the opportunity that is coming this way. I focus on motivated sellers, and I'm gonna go in a circle, but I'm coming back. I'm gonna bring it all around. Motivated sellers, there's different types. You had a partner you're having a disagreement with. It was a physical store, you're moving out the country, whatever. But I especially love the retirees. Retirees right now are baby boomers. All the baby boomers are retiring in this decade, all of them. That means out of the 50 million baby boomers, like 12 million have businesses. If somebody says, hey, well, we need proof of funds and we need this, okay, no, see you later. Go to the next person. The amount of deals that are out there is insane. Just from the baby boomers alone, just from the people who have had their business and it's like, I don't want to go through another recession. They survived it before, but they're like, I'm tired. I just want to retire. Or a plethora of other reasons why you could get businesses for sale. So I say, don't even stress it. Especially if you're new and young at this, I got a student that's 18. And wow. That's hard to be like, yeah, I'm an investor when I'm 18 to portray that, but there's ways to do it. And he brings in other older people that can come in and, more experienced people that he'll partner with. But now he's this, it's like if you found a real estate property, right? And you bring in somebody else, hey, you want to go in on this real estate, you get to control the terms, right? Because you found it, it's your deal. So imagine you found a business for sale and you're like, and I haven't even explained how we do the leverage buyout yet, but we're getting into that now. Let's say I got a business for sale. I found it. I got the NDA. I'm, going into an LOI with them, a letter of intent. And then I say, okay, I need to get 20% up front. I'm gonna find an investor and say, hey, this is a great business. You can see all of this, all of the financials you get to know before you make a decision. It's the best investment you can get into. And they give me that 20% and I take the 20% and go pay it to the seller, right? And now maybe I got 80%, or no, let's say I got 70% seller financing. That's critical. I do that in every deal. If they're not willing to offer seller financing, I'm out of it.
And for our audience, can you let them know what seller financing means? They might not fully understand that yet.
For sure. So seller financing means that the seller is going to tell you, you can pay them over time. Just like how you would go to a bank and get funding from the bank and you're paying back the bank. Now you could just pay a percentage of the selling price to the seller over a period of time, usually 5 to 10 years. Lately, some people have been asking for 3 to 5 years more.
What's going on, guys? I'm George.
I'm Jacqueline.
And I'm Carter. And we are your money mentors. But today we wanted to talk to you about a really special feature, Financial Flicks. Can you imagine an entire on-demand library of financial content across 3 main categories: wealth building, entrepreneurship, and personal finance, so that you can take your finances to the next level?
Guys, when you replace entertainment with education, your life will change forever. Imagine replacing 1 hour of Netflix with 1 hour of Financial Flicks. Imagine how much further that could take you to your financial destination. And we have the perfect library for you.
Yeah, so if you're ready to Financial Flicks and chill with us to put more of your energy into education, then join us in the club. We can't wait to see you there.
See you there.
But guess what? Who is paying that 70% that I mentioned? Seller financing.
The profits of the business you just acquired,
right?
Yeah. The profits of the business, which I already know what the profits are because they gave me the SIM and all the financial information up front so I could reduce my risk as much as possible because I know what I'm getting into, because I'm not buying a business that's started last year or 2 years ago or in 2020 for sure. Right?
Yeah.
They got to be 5 or longer.
And I'll attest to this because I've done this 3 times and I use seller financing every time.
So let me ask you this, because I feel like, again, we need to level set it for our audience. We have a very smart, very intelligent audience, but some people are like, yo, like, is this possible for me? So I got a personal question for you. Do you think that somebody should be a business owner first before buying a business? Because if they'd ever operated a business, it could be a chance that they might come in and potentially mess things up. So do you think that somebody who just quit their job or is maybe still in their job could leave their job and go right into owning a business versus starting a business of their own?
So 2 ways I'm answering that. The first way, 100%, you can start from scratch, never had anything, know anything about it, and then you got into it. My neighbor and I talked about that recently because he bought his first funeral home when he was in college. He was like 18, 19, something like that. And he bought it and he's a Black man and bought it from a Jewish funeral home, but he was able to take it over and change the community. And that's not easy to do. I digress. Anyway, but that's the first way that, yes, you could jump in any way, whether you want to get into it. If you started your business from scratch, you still might fail. So it's not a different, you know what I'm saying? If you getting into business, you might fail. It happens, but you get a head start if you acquire a business. But here's the other thing that I was going to say. My strategy is to be the mindset of an investor. Let me give you a little bit of background first. One of my favorite books is Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, right?
Solid.
Cash flow quadrant, right? Start in E, we're employees, we working in the business, we say those magic words, I want to work for myself. We go down to S, self-employed. We stay there too long because we're still in the business and we're still trading time for money. Then the lucky few make the transition to B, business owner. Now you're working on the business instead of in the business. Now you're steering the direction of the ship. Now you got more time back and you're trading results for money rather than time for money, right? But the ultimate quadrant is the I, and that mindset is different. The investor, you're working above the business. I don't want to be the CEO of nothing. Everybody loves talking about I'm the CEO. I don't want to be the CEO because then you still got to bother me each day about some problem or something. I don't want to do it. I want to hire a CEO. And you may say, oh, but if I'm just starting my business, I can't afford to hire a CEO. That's why we buy businesses that cash flow that can afford to hire a CEO. And we have to change our mindset to be the mindset of an investor because things like, for example, I think I might have told you this, George, but 25% of a watermelon is better than 100% of a grape, right? So I have no problem giving up equity in a business. Why? Because I got 17 of them. And in this business, I only got 20%. In this business, I got, 10%. In this business, I got 80%. In this business, I got 40%. And why would I give up equity? Because I'm putting in management in place and incentivizing them they have ownership in the business, so they have vested interest in it. And now they're operating without me. So imagine if I am a brand new person to entrepreneurship. I decided to go buy a business and I decided to use Beez strategy of let me find a business that has enough revenue in it so I can hire a operator, operations manager, a CEO, whatever it may be, or promote one of the key employees that's already in it who knows
Who already knows the business
for like 20 years and have them running it. So
because the key thing you said there is looking at it as an investor versus a business owner, right? And one thing I always say is if you want 100% of the bag, you got to do 100% of the work, right? So you can get all the money, you can get every dime, right? But you're going to be the operations manager, the sales manager, the copywriter, right? You're going to be everything to everybody. And you have to identify, business and lifestyle alignment, right? If you are addicted to work and hustling, maybe you want to be the CEO. So here's a great example, right? And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it because he's like the second, third richest person in the world. Elon Musk, great example. I think he legit loves to work, right? He loves it, right? So he for temporarily the CEO of Twitter, CEO of Tesla, CEO of SpaceX, right? And he's filthy rich at the same time, but he loves to work. Now, versus someone who might have transitioned to just the founder role and no longer is a CEO, you're still filthy rich, but you're not doing the day-to-day operations anymore, right? But you had to give up a little bit of that, right? Control, number one, which I think is more about control than it is about money, first and foremost, but give up a little bit of that control. And then in this case, in the small business world, give up a little bit of that money too. But my question though, is I feel like a lot of people in our culture, because they're already not aware of like buying businesses in this space, I think they inherently believe that you have to start something from scratch. And more importantly, they're very attached to the thing that they built, right? So this idea of even building something that you can sell or buying something that you're not emotionally attached to and it's just cash flowing. How would you help somebody unravel that mindset or reconcile with that mindset who's like just is so gung-ho on the idea that my business has to be the thing that I'm immensely passionate about?
The first thing I'll say is that a company, because I've started multiple businesses too, right?
Right.
And then acquired into them in order to grow them. One of the businesses I started in 2020, like everybody else, was a car rental business, right?
Been there.
And
Been
I was
there.
just excited. I'm like, sure, why not? So I went above and beyond and got like a bunch of Lamborghinis and all, you know, super cars and everything. And we had a huge operation with a warehouse that was event space and everything. But the first thing that had to happen for me, prior to that, I used to name my cars. Like my red G35 was Candy. My blue Hellcat, that's Smurfette. You know what I'm saying? That's the name it. But that personalization was because that's my baby. No, you can't drive my baby. What are you talking about? But I had to detach myself because that baby is a depreciating, you know, liability. But if I wanted to turn it into an asset and start thinking about everything I do has to be working for me and producing money for me, I had to break that attachment. So that was the first thing that you have to do. You just have to do. I can't tell anybody how to do it. They're going to have to figure out how to break that attachment because, for example, my mother used to, I'm Jamaican, right? So I don't know if this is in the US or not, but China cabinets. You ever heard of that? And it has fine china in it.
Oh, yeah.
That you could never use. You try to use that, boy.
Exactly. That you could never use, right? So she used to be like, "Oh, Bjorn, when I'm gone, that's gonna be for you." I was like, "I don't want that." I was like, "What do you mean?" So I'm saying that because hilarious. What a lot of people find out is that they build a business and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna leave this to my kids and blah blah." And the kids don't want it. That's a whole thing that the whole meme they're talking about. Millennials don't want this and blah 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 blah.
They don't want grandma's house and all sorts
of. They don't want it, right?
Man, kids don't even want to drive these days.
For real, you know. So I feel that you have to break that attachment because it's about business. That also goes towards how you name your businesses, right? If you decide, oh, you know what, I'm gonna name. In the mindset of a CEO or self-employed, you're thinking about building your business credit. If you're thinking about building business credit so that you can get the most funding, then there's certain names that you should not use because you'll be put into a restricted list from the banks because they'll identify a SIC code that they're assigning to your company, especially if it's a new company, right? So for example,
crypto winners.
Not even that. Trucking. You would think that trucking is not a restricted industry. Yes, it is, because it's a high risk industry because those are ticking time bombs on the road. So if you say my company's name is Beez's Trucking Emporium, immediately they're going to assign a SIC code to me of trucking, and now I'm going to get less funding, right? So the smarter thing to do is, because you're thinking of building business credit, like as a CEO, the smarter thing to do is say Beez Empire or something, Beez Enterprise. Right? And say it's kind of agnostic. But that's not smart when it comes to true wealth and true thinking as an investor and true trying to grow a business. Warren Buffett is doing all of this. Warren Buffett said if he had to start from scratch again and lost all of his money, he would start by buying small businesses, growing them a little bit because there's a lot of room to grow. They were just doing inefficiencies and such. And now I would sell it and cash out. So it's the same thing that we have to do. We have to think that we want it to be called Beez Trucking Empire because we want people to know what it does. We want a strong brand. That's important, right? So again, we go back to the mindset of a business owner versus the mindset of the investor.
And you know what I learned very recently too, that kind of was mind blowing for me, because I was doing some research because I got this crazy content series coming out, and I was doing research on the stock market. And what you realize is there's a difference. You have like legal entities, you have brands, you have products, right? A lot of the businesses that people think are businesses are actually brands, right? That roll up, right? To these legal entities that you've never heard of in a lot of cases, right? And so what I learned about that is it allows, number one, to your point, for you to create that legal entity that's agnostic, if you will, right? But then to the general public, right, you might have all these different brands, and you're giving your audience or your customers or would-be customers the illusion of choice as well at the same token, right? They think, oh, if I buy this vegan meat, I'm not supporting Tyson Foods or whoever. The whole time they own a vegan brand too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so it's like, it's just very powerful when you think about it with the end in mind, and you're not so attached emotionally to what you're doing, because you get money from everybody. Like, you know, this is the Melanin Money Show, right? Who's to say one day we don't have a brand nobody knows we own? We got, instead of black, brilliant billionaire in the making, we got white, wealthy, and winning, and we own it too. We're getting their money too. You know what I'm saying? Who's to say?
What's going on, guys? My name is George Acheampong.
I'm Jacqueline Shattuck.
And I'm Carter Cofield.
And we are the founders of Melanin Money. And the reason why we started Melanin Money is because we know that there's a great disparity when it comes to building wealth among people of color. We have a tremendous mission that we want you guys to join, right? Every single year, we want to help at least 1,000 people improve their net worth by $100,000, which will create $100 million of new black wealth every single year.
Can you imagine $100 million of new black wealth every year? As it stands right now, for every $1 that a white family has, a black family has a mere 10 cents to match that dollar. We want to increase the wealth in the black community so that we can have equal opportunities.
Simply put, we're about closing the wealth gap, and it starts with you.
So see you inside.
Right. But it really just does open your mind up to like what the mind of an investor and an owner versus like, oh, I gotta brandish my name all over this because I want the world to know that this is mine.
Ooh.
It makes it less attractive from someone that wants to buy it too, right? As well. So that was cool.
Because if you have to be the face of it in order to continue sales and continue growth, then no one else, that's not a business that's sellable. It's not a business that's scalable if it's dependent on one person like that. So 100% I agree with that. Now,
so my question is this, and I'm playing that. Well, we're saying God's advocate now, right? No devil's advocate, God's advocate. Right?
I like that.
So like I'm a CPA by nature, like got my master's degree in finance and all that. So this all makes sense to me, right? But like if it's somebody new that wants to buy a business and they don't know how to read a P&L, like how, like, you know what I'm saying? Like it sounds good, like, you know what I'm saying? I can read one, I have to read one, I'm an accountant, but like, yo, Beez, you my dog, but like, bro, you said read a P&L and you lost me. Like, how do we get past that to make sure our audience doesn't limit themselves to thinking that this is not for them?
I love Carter's questions because I got two answers again for you. The first one is that when I start talking about P&Ls and talking about EBITDA and SDE and start talking about multiples and all these things, people are like, that's too much. Nothing I just mentioned is unique to business acquisition. If you start a business from scratch, you also got to read a P&L. You also got to know what
you ain't gonna be in business very long.
Or you ain't gonna be in business very long. You also need to know what your SDE is, what your seller discretionary earnings are. You need to know these things. It's not unique to the acquisition. It's unique to business in general, right? But second answer, yes, I do teach my students how to read a P&L at a basic level. But I also give them the resources and say, listen, I don't do it only myself. I bring in a third-party financial services firm that's going to do financial due diligence for me. I bring in a legal firm that's doing my legal due diligence, right? Those two things then combine, and then I'm closing next week. Finally, it's been forever because of a lawsuit they were going through. I'm closing on a nightclub in South Florida.
Oh yeah, you told me about that. Dope.
Yeah, finally. Dope. I was hoping to do it on my birthday, but it didn't happen. So
and
what's on my birthday?
Yeah.
Light work. You know what I'm saying?
What'd you say though, Carter?
No, I was like, what's a long time qualified to you?
What's a what?
I said, you said a long time. What does that mean? To you, what's a long time?
Because I said it took a long time?
Yeah.
Well, I'll answer that in a bit, but I was in the due diligence already, and the due diligence took longer than I expected because of the holidays and stuff like that. But the third thing that I do is industry consultant. So in the nightclub, listen, I don't even drink. I don't drink no liquor. I don't go to the club like that. It's just this is me right now, right? But I'm buying a nightclub because I also had some investors that wanted to come in on it. But I don't know nothing about what's currently popping in nightclubs and stuff. So I went to an industry consultant that came in and evaluated everything and said, hey, they're not even doing bottle service right. They don't have the hookah. Actually, they have hookah, but they outsource it to an external consultant. If you brought that in, you'd increase revenue by 80%. I noticed that they have a kitchen, but the less than 5% of revenue is made up from food. They're not trained, and the servers are not trained to sell the food. They never offered me a menu. They go in as a secret shopper and all of that type of stuff. So
Wow.
I'm bringing in professionals.
He got it dialed in.
Bro, that shit crazy.
But
so real quick before I forget, so you mentioned like, okay, well, I bring in these third parties, right? So how do you go about finding these people? Part one. And part two, if someone were to join your community where you educate people on this, do you have like a database of resource? Obviously, there's so many different businesses you could buy, right? But like, do you have like baseline resources that people can tap if they need to identify these third parties to be able to, vet out these businesses?
And not only like a list, hey, go check these out, but some partners too, who have come into the community and spoken and said, okay, just for y'all, if you want financial due diligence, use this link. It'll take you directly to the pricing that we have with the BBI, blah, blah, blah. Right. So we're trying to use our power now to create some leverage in the community. I got a bunch of Black owned banks that I'm, have a good relationship with, different partners in it and owners, CEOs in it, everything. And I'm trying to bring them together where we could get funding for actual deals, right? Everybody been asking me why I don't create like a conference. I'm like, I don't want a conference the way that conferences have been going recently. It's like the conference is more about trying to sell you on something else to upgrade to. I don't need that, right? If I'm having a conference with my community, especially, it has to be something valuable. We need to be looking at deals. We need to be closing deals. We need to bring in investment bankers in. I have a database of family offices. Most of my students was like, what's a family office? I was like, see, we got a lot of work to do because the rich talk about these things. The wealthy, not the rich, the wealthy talk about these things and we just ignore it. So we using trust. We using infinite banking in our negotiations when we're acquiring businesses because we show people that, hey, if I give you all this money right now, you're going to get taxed on it. But if you let me pay you over time through seller financing, then you won't get taxed immediately on the windfall. If you let me put it into something called an infinite bank for your insurance policy, and we could tie that, we could even have 2 or 3 of them for your kids too. And all that money is now not going to be taxed and you can borrow against it. They're like, what? What's that?
Now you're talking spicy.
You see
Now
what I'm
you're
saying?
talking spicy.
Yo, creative deal structuring. That's what this is all about. That's how I'm able to get these businesses with no money out of my pocket. Just stacking the deal with different things.
That's facts. Because most people, like, just because you start a business doesn't mean you're financially savvy, right? And so what it sounds like what ends up happening is these people are, on the brink of retirement. They've worked hard. They built something that's sustainable. And now they are ready to retire. They are ready to have a liquidation event, but that doesn't magically make them financially astute, right? They just grew a business, right? So it sounds like what you're also bringing to the table are creative ideas that they haven't even thought about that they can, leverage to have a successful retirement, which is smart, right? Like I always say that there's 3 people in every deal, right? It's what the bedrock of the economy. You have the broker, the buyer, and the builder. Let's call it that, right? In this scenario, the person who wants to buy the business is the broker, right? Like, because you're connecting the dots between the person who built the thing and the person who might have the financing, whether it's the institution or another investor or whatever, to get the deal done. The number one job of the broker is the person who, like, how can I create it? My skin in the game is my creativity to make it a win-win for everybody. Right. That's essentially my skin in the game. So it's like, it sounds like the reason why you can come to the table with these deals with no money out of pocket is because you know the language, you know how to make it a win-win for everybody. You know how to be creative and have a strategy that makes sense. So that's how I hope our listeners can understand that's how you can buy these businesses, right? It's not just the access to capital, it's the strategy and the thought process in the due diligence, if you will, on finding these opportunities, because there's no shortage of good deals, no shortage of money in the market. There's a shortage of people who know how to articulate the value and the opportunity to both sides.
What's up, guys? Congratulations on joining Team Black Wealth. But we'd be remiss if we didn't give you a uniform as an official player on the team. So head over to shop.melaninmoney.com and grab your official uniform for Wealth Builders Academy.
We'll see y'all at practice.
And I'll say that with that remember I mentioned the greatest wealth transfer is about to occur, with especially just from the baby boomers that are retiring and going to be giving over those businesses, right? But there's also Biz Buy Sell, for example, largest online broker for businesses, right? They put out a statistic maybe the beginning of last year saying that 80% of the businesses that list on Biz Buy Sell for sale do not get sold. That's not because they're not good businesses. Oh, sorry. See, of course, the dog is running here, but it's not because they're not good businesses. It's because most people don't know that they could buy a business. There's not enough people to actually buy the business, right? So brokers don't even, there's a business broker, but a business broker is really just based on a real estate broker license. There's no training for a business broker. They don't know what to do to get the business sold because there's not enough people to buy it. So businesses just sit there for long and they become more motivated. And then Beez swoops in and it's like,
yeah.
Random question. Where did the name come from? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Jacqueline. Where'd the name come from? So like Beez, like what did like business builder be? Like, how'd you come up with that? I'm just genuinely curious.
Totally ridiculously organic. It was my first name is Bjorn. It's a Swedish name. It means it's a Norwegian name, like the movie the show Vikings. Bjorn was the big bear is what it stands for. So a lot of people, you know, I'm Jamaican, like I said, and growing up, most people couldn't pronounce Bjorn, so they would just call me Bjorn. Then eventually it became B, then Beez. That's literally it.
Gotcha.
Just cut it all the way down. Okay, so I got two experts here, and I want to hear from both of y'all. So it's interesting because Beez, when you're looking at a business, right, you're looking at the P&Ls, you're looking at the financials, you're looking at the health of the business, right? Well, part of what Carter promotes people to do is to write off a lot of things through their business. So if you write off a lot of stuff, so let's say somebody is selling their business, right? And you go on Biz Buy Sell, you're like, hey, let me get those statements. They're like, I got you. You look at the statements, you're like, wow, this business is trash. Like, they're not making any money. Look at all these expenses. They're writing everything off, right? Because it's a small business. They're cash flowing a couple $100,000 a year. So in this situation, how are you telling your, I'm not going to call them client, how are you telling your students to evaluate that kind of a situation?
And Beez, before I let you answer that, let me just clarify. Well, Jacqueline's right. Teaching people to write everything off is important, but also let them know that depreciation is one of the best write-offs that they can get. And when you're looking at a business, it's EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, and depreciation, right? So that won't, if they do it the proper way, the depreciation and amortization won't be a function of the P&L statement when it comes to valuing the business. But how would you explain it?
I must say this is one of my favorite conversations ever because I love the questions that y'all are asking. It shows to the level of integrity and intelligence on this show. Yo, I love this. I love this. So anyway,
we appreciate it, brother. We aspire to bring the sauce, you know. It's not sold separately on this podcast, you know what I'm saying? It comes with the meal. We don't charge extra 25 cents to dip. You know what I'm saying? It comes with it.
Yeah, that was a phenomenal question, Jack. That was good. That was good.
So here's the thing. First of all, I got 2 or 3 questions or answers for you. First of all, that's a problem, especially just as an entrepreneur, right? A lot of times we're like, oh, we can write all these things off. We write it off, but then we can't qualify for to buy a house because we were doing all these things out of the business. So our personal revenue, you know, if you're trying to buy a house for yourself, not within the business name or something like that, right, doesn't match up. So that's always a balance that you got to work on. Me, I use a trust. And because I use a trust, I only make a certain amount of money, right? It's only very little. So then now it's hard for me to go get something in personal name because it's like, oh, well, you don't make enough. Okay, well, the trust could go buy it too. So that's the first thing. The second thing is because on the tax returns, people are going to deduct all types of stuff and it's going to look bad on the tax returns. Usually the P&Ls are not going to look that bad. And the first thing that you got to remember is that EBITDA is usually a calculation of a professionally managed business, right? Whereas SDE is more applicable to owner-operated businesses, right?
Seller discretion.
When you're calculating, I'm sorry, yeah, seller discretionary earnings. And the reason why there's a difference between the two is because with seller discretionary earnings, you're going to talk about the add backs, right? Because as all entrepreneurs, I mean, I've done it. Maybe, oh well, no, I didn't. IRS, no. Oh, I'm charging the nanny through the business as employee childcare, or whatever, these little things that I write off because if I own the business all by myself, I'm owner operated, I can do those type of things and you put it in the business, but they're not actual expenses from the business. So you got to add those back in order to get the valuation of the business.
Once the owner's replaced, when you buy the business,
those won't be true expenses
anymore. Gotcha.
Right.
Exactly. So that's why you got to know that you're looking at SDE. Now, when we're going through due diligence, we're getting all financials, all documents. The tax returns is going to show me one thing because you can't lie to the government too much, right? The IRS, not for too long. You're going to show your top line revenue, but then you're going to show all these things that you're deducting as expenses. So, okay, I'm confirming your top line revenue. Then I'm going to correlate it between your bank statements, your P&Ls, your everything, right? So it's as a student, as a person that's doing it yourself, you need to at least be able to look at P&Ls. That's the very basics, right? And maybe the tax returns. But then you're going to bring in the professional teams that's going to look at everything all together and make sure that what they earned. Oh, we just had this issue with the nightclub. It looked like the liquor orders, for the month weren't matching up to the sales that they were getting. Like, you're reordering such little amounts, but you're saying you're selling this. You must be selling it for $100 a shot or something. What's going on? But, we had to, we got more documentation that was missing and we were able to correlate it. So you have to look at the total picture when you're doing your due diligence. And why wouldn't you want to when it lets you reduce your risk? You know what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah. So I think it's a great point for this question, because I mean, all this sounds dope, bro. Because if you think about it, a motivated seller, plus you might get seller financing, so you'd have to pay that much out of pocket. Plus, a lot of business owners don't know how to run businesses. So you can come into this nightclub, jack the prices up, start selling food, replace, and now first of all, you bought it for a deal. Now you just 2x the profit in a couple months by putting the right people in the right seats. All sounds good. What are some things to avoid though? What are like 2 to 3 just major things or mistakes that you want to avoid when going into this market of trying to acquire a business? I'm assuming one of them is falling in love with the business, right? But give me some of yours.
Yeah, definitely. First and foremost, falling in love with the business. Second, I would say one of the questions that actually a lot of people have asked me when they heard about the nightclub, they were like, it's a Latin-based nightclub. So they were like, "Oh, are you gonna change it up?
Get my sauce on, bro. I'll be there."
So they were like, "Oh, you're gonna change it up?" I was like, "Hell no! Why would I do that? It's been operating and producing the revenue that I want, and for all these years, 23 years. Why would I just come in and be like, well, I'm gonna do it this way now?" No, that's that detaching your ego from it, right? All I'm coming in is to enhance. Right? Why would I change the core if the core is producing $3.4 million a year? Right? But, well, you only open at 8 p.m. and you're closed from all morning. Well, at least we could have a brunch that is, that's not changing the core. I'm just adding brunch now and a happy hour now and Uber Eats with Ghost Kitchen now and whatever else, just marketing. I told you I like the retirees. Most retirees weren't even they're not on social media. They don't know what a funnel is. If I come in to a business that's already making, $4 million in top line revenue without marketing, without a sales team, what? I'm a 10X quickly. So to me, that's the approach overall.
No, that's one of the really beautiful things about looking at a lot of these businesses. Like, a lot of them they have cash flow, they're making money, but like you said, they they haven't instituted anything new. And it's a lot of times because, you know, they're tired. They're ready to get out. They want to get out before the recession. So that's a good point. What's your other point?
So, okay, so that was one in terms of don't go in immediately trying to change things. Now, this one is kind of, the next one is kind of part of A of that, or, you know, 1A or something. A lot of times when the first time I'm speaking to the employees, I reassure them that, yo, you ain't going nowhere. Don't worry. I need y'all. I love what you guys have done. I'm trying to give them more. I'm even trying to be willing to give them maybe someone that's going to be in a leadership level. They can earn equity over time. They'll get an earn in on equity because then they vested again in the business, right? So the 1A of biggest mistakes is don't go in and just try to fire people like Elon did with Twitter. Mind you, what Elon did, I told you that this book was the story of the largest LBO in history, right? That was until this year when Elon did it with Twitter. Most people don't realize that that was an LBO, right? That's why but he did it wrong. Let me not say wrong, the way that I don't like. The root of leveraged buyouts came from something called corporate rating back in the days. They really just rebranded it to leveraged buyout, right? Because the corporate rating had a negative connotation. Now, corporate rating is when you would go in, you're going to gut the business. You're going to fire everybody. You're going to sell off all the furniture, fixtures, and equipment. And then you pocket all the money and the business is in shambles.
Like rating, like RAID, like
yes,
rating.
RAIDING.
Yeah, yep. That doesn't sound good. Exactly,
right? So that was what I've been trying to avoid saying it, but a lot of the white community been doing for the longest. Like Mitt Romney, he was going in, you know, he's a politician and everything, but he's a businessman first, and he was going in and raiding companies, you know, Trump kind of too, right? Now, but we also want to learn from these people. We want to learn how to do it ethically, in my opinion. That's why I'll go in and reduce the amount of money that's coming out my pocket all the way to zero. But technically I could go a little bit further and then put money in my pocket, right? So I won't get greedy with that. I just want to get the business because I want the cash flow and I want it to be an asset for me, even if it's only paying me $50K a month, whatever, right? So, but then now I got 10 of them paying me $50K a month, right? So that's my approach overall, is that I just want to make sure that it's always going to be something that's long-term beneficial for me. It's assets under management. All right. One last thing that I would say in terms of a pitfall to avoid is trying to do too many of them at the same time. All right. I had to talk to a client too, because in the BBI, I teach how to do this, but I also have another company called Capital Beez where I have some friends that are like, I don't have the time to learn it. I just want you to do it for me.
Facts.
So at first I was like, well, if I did it but they were more so saying doing it together. I was like, yeah, but if we're doing it together, I'm gonna do all the work and get it to zero out of pocket. What do I give you that for, right? So it became a service eventually, and people will pay me to find businesses that can be turnkey, you know, storage units, storage facilities, car washes, laundromats. I love those. Pest control companies, all of these, I love them. Tow truck companies, love it. Find the business for them. It's like organized crime. They get away with everything.
This is tow truck company that got me.
I was there.
He was there.
Yeah, it was
before the event. Before we had an event back in December, and the night before a tow truck. Well, it was a boot. They gave me a boot, but was the company name Gotcha? Wasn't that the name of the company?
Yeah, it was like Gotcha or something, bro. Literally, it was $200 for 20 minutes. Like the boot was on 20 minutes. They got $200 because they had to come back out. And I'm like, bro, they do. And they get everybody in a row. I'm like, bro, that's like 2,000 right there. They're gonna make it like this next 2 hours. Like, you know what I'm saying? And there's nothing you can do about it. Like, guaranteed revenue. But yeah, I digress.
But yeah, I just love those type of business. They'll, you know, hire me to get it, find it, go through due diligence, acquire it, turn it over to them, and then good to go. And sometimes I end up with, because there's an initiation fee to get started, and then there's a success fee after it's completed, and then you're able to use the funds from the business for the success fee. But some people also opt, instead of the flat fee, they opt for giving me a percentage of equity to be an advisor. because I have the experience in scaling. So, you know, that's been helping me too, to just have multiple things everywhere. My guy right there, George, I've already used your statement maybe like 8 times. Financial freedom, financial independence, and financially untouchable, right? You're the one that told me that, right?
Yeah.
It was just like last month.
Yeah.
And that's the key there, because financial freedom, yeah, I'm able to afford everything that I typically want. I'm not talking the jets and stuff, just hey, you know, whatever I want, I don't really even stress it, but I'm actively bringing in that money. Financial independence, you set up multiple streams of revenue that's replacing that active one that you were doing before. So now you're sitting back and it's just coming in. So I'm there, but I'm trying to get to that financially untouchable, because the same way that you can acquire a $1 million business with zero out of your pocket, you could also do it for a $45 billion business. So I'm trying to get to that route now, like my guy, Reginald Lewis.
Yeah, man. And I'm keeping you close by too. I'm keeping you. Where you going?
Yeah. We got a segment when we have people on Beez. It's called Tweet 'em and Weep. Okay. So what we do is we scour through your Twitter feed and we read back an interesting tweet to you or two.
My Twitter feed, I don't even think I've tweeted in like over 2 years or a year, maybe. I don't know.
Okay, all right. Well, you know, you might have said this tweet. It's a good one. You had some interesting ones, but this is a good one. Okay. If you want different results, you have to start doing things you've never done before. Every year, I'm aiming to do something a different way, and it is the new year. You're very successful so far. You just shared with us a little bit about what you're trying to do, get to that financially untouchable point. So what are you going to do differently this year to make it to that point?
Great question. I love y'all, man. Okay, so there's multiple strategies when it comes to M&A. And one of the strategies I've been focusing on is related to what Warren Buffett mentioned, right? That I would buy the small businesses and grow them and blah, blah, blah. So I tend to buy businesses that are between 2 million to 10 million in I'll say in top line revenue, but really it's more so in the selling price, 2 million to 10 million in the selling price. I like that magic number because it's usually a lot of inefficiencies in there for me to easily turn around and grow it in value. So I used to think I could sell it, but now I'm focused on AUM, assets under management. So I want to keep them now, right? But what I'm going to be doing different this year, because one of my students told me, I think it was like the end of 2021, he said, Beez, you helped me to get to 7 figures. I love it. But with the acquisitions, I see a path to being a billionaire. And when he said it, I was like, yeah, of course. And then I thought to myself, you know, I've been cool just being a millionaire and I'm just here, I'm just chilling. But I want that financially untouchable, right? So now my trading or my acquisitions are going to be more like $20 million acquisitions, $50 million acquisitions. But that's my minimum threshold now. It's a different approach, right? The turnover time is going to take longer. I may bring in, instead of the typical way that I'm doing the LBOs by myself into structuring the deal, I'm going to bring in investment bankers. All right. These are the type of things I'm going to have to do now and change my strategy in order to go to that goal of, I didn't get to mention, I have a challenge out there right now called the $1 Trillion Table Challenge. Right. And the $1 Trillion Table Challenge, I want to sit in a room at a table at the end of this decade with people that look like us. And we have $1 trillion AUM, assets under management. It's not $1 trillion cash in our pocket. That's a portfolio of businesses, real estate, investment portfolios, everything together. And it's entirely possible through buying businesses. It's entirely possible through real estate. And it's entirely possible through, you know, playing the financial markets, Forex and stock, everything. So I got to go towards that challenge now. And I need to make that shift to go looking at the bigger businesses as well.
Right, because you're gonna be at the table. You got to be at least $1 billion. Yeah. I was gonna say depending on how big the table is, but you got to be at least $1 billion strong. At least $1 billion strong. So
that's beautiful. You know, you got us to hold you accountable, to support you. You know, anything that you need, we got you. But there's one wrap-up question that we like to ask. You want to take this one, Carter?
Yeah. So one question that we always ask our guests is, I know you're gonna be a billionaire soon, but right now we're still a millionaire level. So what does it mean to you to be a melanin millionaire?
What does it mean to be a melanin millionaire? What it means to me is mostly about the youth. The information that I found out now, I wish I knew it when I was 17 years old. I was asking people and I had nobody to tell me nothing. And in fact, they were telling me things that were wrong. They were telling me things like credit is bad, debt is bad. No, there's bad debt and good debt. And we got to use credit in order to create wealth, right? So for me, as a melanated millionaire, it's my duty to share that with the next generation of our other melanated youth, that they're coming up and they just want to know, like, what can I do? What should I do? I had the most powerful conversation with my son. He just started college and he went out to Cali and he was like, Dad, I found a sushi restaurant for sale. Can we acquire it? And I was like, I don't really like restaurants that much, but we could think about it. You're saying you want to run it and be responsible for it? He was like, yeah, it would be so clutch because girls love sushi. And I was like, that's the wrong reason, bro. But
I like where your head's at.
Conversation.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? With me as a black man to have with my black son that, we could buy that business, no problem. And
that's
zero
dope.
out of.
Man, you just got out of college not too long ago.
I was about to say, man, I was doing math, carry the 7.
Man, buying business must be stress-free, man. You looking good over there, man. I was like,
hey, I'm tired, man. I gotta enjoy life, always smiling. I got the smile lines though. So
Hey,
I think it's that Miami
truly
air.
Appreciate you coming on the show, man. Nothing but gems, nothing but bars. And I know we've kind of been loosely mentioning that you educate people on this stuff and they can learn how to do this, they can get in the game. So could you share with the audience, if someone's like, I gotta get in this game, like how can they tap in with you? How can they learn from you?
For sure. They could. So I have the BBI, the Business Builders Institute. You could go to businessbuildersinstitute.com, or you could go to my IG, Business Builder Beez. That's BEEZ. And in there, you'll see like some links. You could watch some different videos, get some more information. You could get in touch with me directly through there. And in the BBI, we have 3 tiers. So you could come in and just say, hey, I just want the information. I just want to learn it. I want the resources, where to go, who to speak to for financial due diligence, all of that. Cool, good, you got that. But then we have the other tier, which is done with you, right? Done with you is we're meeting weekly in perpetuity for right now. And a lot of people say to me, like, you shouldn't be meeting with your students forever at just that little price that they came in. I don't care. This is I'm talking about things that I'm doing every day, right? Yeah. I like to come and be like, hey, I just found out that we can take over the EIDL loan, or we can assume it, so we can reduce the price of the selling, the selling price of the business by that EIDL loan, which is one of the best loans to have anyway, right? So when I found that out originally, I brought it to the community. So yeah, we meet weekly, we talk about everything, and we just build in a community of investors that's trying to grow wealth overall.
So let me really quickly just back up what you're doing. So I've actually had a couple people come to me and said, hey, I bought Beez program and I'm going through it. Can you legitimize it? And I'm like, Beez done made it. Cause like once other people are trying to double check on your stuff, like you made it. So you made it. You're doing really well. The program was awesome. You got some really great students in there. All around, glad we could support you. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. We really appreciate having you.
Appreciate you, bro.
Peace.
Peace.